So after I played every Barbie game as a 21-year-old guy and had a great time doing so, I thought, what other game franchises have I never played before? And after looking through a few suggestions, I landed on Monster High. Now I'm sure you're wondering if I enjoy myself playing these games as well. Well, let's just say I'm too Ghoul for school. Does that answer the question? Now this is a bit different to the Barbie games, as I've seen a few of the movies before, once or twice, due to having female family members, but the games I've never touched or even knew existed, but was excited to play them and went in with an open mind, as of course I'm not the target audience for these games, or maybe I'm slowly coming into that category, I'm not sure. In the list is a mix between a few console and browser games, as well as some iOS ones, but I physically couldn't play them, so they can't be rated. I'm going to be rating each game out of 5 stars, and at the end, we'll see which one was my favourite and which one was the worst. Also, if you enjoy my content, feel free to subscribe, it really helps out. The Monster High game I'm playing first is Ghoul Spirit. This is one of the Wii games on the list, and it took me a while to figure out the controls using.
Please come to my office to prepare for the new students.
What the fuck is the back button? The back button. But first off, the menu music for this game actually goes pretty hard. It sounds like you're clubbing in the 2010s when you're loading in, even if it was insanely loud. Oh my god. And this song was actually featured in future games and was stuck in my head for about 3 days straight. Also, ignore the second cursor, I didn't realise it was showing when recording. But in this game, you start off by picking your name and choosing your character. You can choose what type of monster you want to be. I don't think this has any actual impact, but I'm not 100% sure. You then start off in the headmistress's office, where you get your student ID and are welcomed into the school and get introduced to the communication mechanic in the game and see what you say to people affects your Ghoul score, which is needed to get to the end of the game to become the most popular student. After the meeting, you're then free to explore the school and meet up with the other characters of the game. Oh my god, we're in the school. You have the popular base Monster High characters like Draculaura, Claudine, Laguna, Frankie, Ghoulia, and Cleo. And I'm sure if you're a girl who has all the dolls and loves these characters, then seeing them in a game and being able to talk to them would probably blow your mind back when this game came out in 2011. Now the whole game takes place within the Monster High school, which is comprised of various locations. There's the main halls where you see most of the other students hanging around. You have the library, the canteen, aka the creepateria, the computer room, the indoor swimming pool, and the individual classes that you can go to. And outdoor areas like the football field, where you get to see the crazy environment outside of the school. And there's also the addition of a few small rooms like the janitor's closet and the creature's lounge. The ghoul's bathroom. Oh, it's locked. What if I need to take a ghoul shit? I think the game does a good job of making the school feel like an actual school, as it has a lot of things going on in it. Although you can't speak to every student, they still walk around and do their own things, and the dialogue with the main characters is enough on its own, including these cats that were really mean to me.
You're clearly not the pick of the litter.
And I mean, who wants to speak to these other nobodies anyway? There's also little details like the speaker going off every 5 minutes with the headmistress saying some random shit, which adds to the immersion but can get annoying after a while.
All vampires planning on spending recess outside, please bring the proper sunblock.
In terms of gameplay, a lot of the game is completing quests for characters that take you around the school, collecting items and getting information through various means to go back and give to them. The game does mix it up a bit though, through different puzzles like unlocking locker combinations. However, a majority of the quest completing side is running around, but this bat that guides you in the right direction makes it much easier. There's some extra features that help you, such as your locker to keep all quests items in a sorted manner. There's the map, pretty self-explanatory. An iCoffin, which is basically an iPhone, where you get text from the other monsters asking you to meet them in various places, and a diary to keep track of all the quests that you're currently doing, which is very helpful as it can get confusing when there are so many to do. The other side of the gameplay is the classes that you take. These are Calculus, where you need to count how many zombies go into these rooms, Drama, where you recreate some posters of certain plays, Mad Science, where you mix up different ingredients into a potion, and Physical Education, where you need to aim balls at this target and hit it. Now I was playing on the Wii version of this game. I think the only other version is on the DS, but the controls felt pretty good and easy to use. However, the camera would sometimes go all over the place when trying to follow the character, which would get a bit annoying, but I do think the game uses the feature of the Wii remote in a pretty good way. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing groundbreaking that you haven't seen before, but it does the job. I did have a pretty good time playing this one, and I think it's a good place to start off the list, so I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Next up we have Monster High Skultimate Maze. The amazing Monster High music is back, and this time you get given a little animation at the beginning of the game. This is kind of a Monster High version of Mario Kart, except with a bit less quality, and instead of riding a kart, you're riding on roller skates. And you play as a team of 3 characters that you switch between during the race. And of course, it's Monster High characters. You begin with the main characters of the series, with a few more like Operetta and Claudine's brother, Claude. He was my favourite actually. I like how much of a high school chad he's meant to be portrayed as.
Smell you later.
There are different difficulties for each race you complete, starting off with Spooky and going up to Terrifying. and each time you complete a race in each difficulty, you unlock collectibles and more characters. There is a multiplayer version included, however, I didn't have anyone to play with, so I just screamed at the AIs instead. Oh, you fucking dick. Now, when you start the race, the characters actually say a few lines to each other, depending on who you play as and who you're playing against, which I thought was a nice touch. What are the 2 words? He didn't say the 2 words. And in terms of the racing itself, the controls are very basic, just moving forward and left to right, with some power-ups added to be able to gain boosts or trap other racers. And some of these were pretty cool. Right then, it's been eaten by a locker, and others weren't. Oh my god. Oh my god. I swear to god, if I get hit by another book. The mechanic of having to change characters when your current one gets tired, I thought was pretty unique and added another little layer to what would otherwise be a pretty basic race. As far as the maps go, they're okay, and some have different ways to complete them to add some variety throughout the laps. There are 5 maps in total, the first being a riverside town, I think in France with this spooky version of the Eiffel Tower. Then there's a beach village with a big canyon in the middle of it, an underground arena where we can actually see some fans spectating, and by underground I mean really underground, like there's literally lava that you skate past, with some tentacles that come out and smash onto the tracks. There's a nighttime tiki village map lit up entirely by torches, and finally the Monster High School, where we see a few more obstacles like these fists that pummel you. And this is also the one where the winners are shown on the podium outside the entrance. Each map is different from the other, which does keep it interesting during the races. However, there is only a small selection, so I can imagine if you played this game more than a few times, then it would get a bit repetitive. Overall, this game was fun to play for the 30 minutes that I did, but I think if I played any longer, I probably would have gotten a bit bored. However, I do think that it's a pretty well made game, and was not expecting to see a racing title when I decided to play some Monster High games, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. The next game we're playing is Monster High 13 Wishes. This one is based off one of the movies that I actually vaguely remember watching when I was younger, so I was kind of familiar with the main enemy of the game, the evil genie. The basic premise is that Howling Wolf, who I'm guessing is related to Claudine, finds a genie lamp that grants her 13 wishes, but the wishes actually have some negative side effects to them, and eventually the evil shadow version of the genie comes and speaks to Howleen to convince her to make her final wish for the genie to have full power of the lamp, and when she does this, she will be able to take full control over the school. The Ghouls work with a good genie to try and find these 13 mirror pieces that will be able to stop the evil genie. However, after having one left to retrieve, they're too late, and eventually Howleen makes her wish, and the evil genie gains full control over Monster High by trapping everyone inside the genie lamp. God, how many times am I going to say genie in one sentence? But this is where the game begins. Frankie wakes up in a locker within the school halls and realizes that she hasn't been trapped in the genie lamp, as the good genie, who's called Gigi by the way, I probably should have just called her that from the beginning, but she gave her an orb which protected her from being trapped. Frankie decides to go to the pool to see if Howleen is still there in this big palace, and gives one of the best puns I've ever heard in my life.
I hope there aren't any monsters at the pool. They'd be shocked to see me there.
She goes through the school, which is completely empty, apart from Deuce, who's just chilling here for some reason, and eventually goes to the pool, which is actually really big, and then to Howleen's tower at the end of it. Unfortunately, Howleen isn't here, and this is when I discovered that the crouch animations look very odd. What the fuck is that? But there is a mysterious glowing ball that takes Frankie into the lamp to some sandy plains where Gigi surprises her. She tells her that all of the other ghouls have been trapped within the lantern, and she needs to find them, as well as all the mirror pieces, to save everyone and defeat the evil shadow genie. Then after stomping on this giant snake skeleton to get a Monster High badge, Frankie is left to go and find the other ghouls and free them from the evil genie's spell. Laguna is found first in the sandy area by a beach, which I think is meant to be a mirage because obviously they're in a desert. Now Laguna's accent is not the best. She's meant to be Australian but sounds very dodgy at times, and she also loves to throw a pun in every chance she gets.
I hope you're right. Come on, let's kick our fins. This place is washed up.
Oh my god, how many fin puns. And loves to celebrate for way too long when collecting the first mirror piece.
We found a mirror piece.
Alright, I get it. You guys keep celebrating. Now, each character in the game has their own unique ability and attack. Frankie's is to fire lightning out of her hands and is able to rip off one of her hands and control it to get into these areas that aren't normally reachable. And Laguna's is to disperse bubbles whilst also being able to swim underwater. The next school to be found is Cleo, who Frankie finds being carried by some gargoyle creatures. And her unique ability is to be able to teleport on these glowing purple rings to get across gaps, and she fires wraps around her to attack. She also has the most aggressive sounding voice effects I've ever heard. Then there's Abby, who is found trying to figure out a secret password.
Yes, secret password that is very secret, and no one knows, because it's secret. The secret password. Well, of course, I know the secret password. Who doesn't?
You know secret password?
Oh my god, how long is this
how?
gonna go on
I am
for?
not-
And her unique ability is to be able to create ice bridges to get across gaps, and she attacks by firing ice balls. Abby then finds Claudine next as she's being dressed up by 2 gargoyles, and her unique ability is to be able to sniff out platforms with her wolf nose that she can then use to get to hard to reach areas that the other ghouls wouldn't be able to see. But logically thinking, the platforms would still be there, they would just be invisible to the others, so you should still be able to jump on them, but it's a kid's game, never mind. Then finally, Draculaura is found, and she's also been given a makeover by the gargoyles. Maybe they're not evil, maybe they just want to become artists, who knows. But her unique ability isn't very unique, as she just uses her powerful vampire eyes to also be able to see invisible platforms, so it's just the same ability as Claudine's. I'm not sure if the developers just ran out of ideas or what, but again, it is a kid's game. After finding Draculaura, I also had this glitch where when I came out of the portal, I turned into some random character that I'd never even seen before. Who the fuck is that? Which becomes some random girl. In terms of maps, I was pretty impressed. The school is very detailed despite not really being the main area where the game takes place. The giant halls and outside areas with no one in them really makes the school feel empty and ominous, and there are a lot of rooms that you can go into that don't really do anything but are just there to explore. And I think this is a good addition, as the developers could have just not added them and it wouldn't have really affected the main game in any particular way. Also, the outside areas are pretty cool, as you can see the solar eclipse that has happened that caused the evil genie to take over. Then there's the individual areas within the lantern. There's the previously mentioned sandy desert, which is just a desert with a few locations to get collectibles in, but you can slide around these sand dunes, which is fun. There's a pyramid map with a few buildings to start with, some underwater areas with this cool swimming sequence with Laguna, and of course the pyramids that contain a few puzzles to get across. Then there's these giant ruins and contain huge statues of Gigi. This map also has some parkour areas that begin to demonstrate a bit more of a complex parkour style with these moving blocks. There's also a few different style maps with this giant dressing room where some flying carpets are used for parkour and to ride on in a similar sequence to Laguna's swimming. Then there's a candle room, which is very similar to the previous level, just with some giant candles lying around. And there's also these maze levels, which have some of the hardest parkour I have ever seen in these types of games. I honestly have no idea how a 10-year-old girl is supposed to complete these. I think the maps are pretty well designed in this game and have plenty of areas to go and explore and little objectives to complete. For example, each character has a coin that they can collect in every mission, where you need to use their unique ability to be able to get to it. And as you unlock new characters throughout the game, you can go back to previous maps and go complete the quests. I think there is a decent variety between the maps, and most of them feel different from one another, even though they may be in similar types of areas. The puzzles aren't very complex apart from some of the parkour, but considering it is a kids game, I suppose I can't really hold that against it. Speaking of the parkour, the movement mechanics are done quite well. From wall jumping to rope climbing and traversing ledges, it feels pretty smooth for an old Wii game, and I especially liked how they changed some of the wall jumping scenarios, where for one of them you're jumping between 2 moving walls, almost like an elevator. There is also the inclusion of boss battles, which I wasn't expecting. Only 3, but still. The first one is a giant beetle, the next is a giant gargoyle, and the final one is the evil genie herself. Again, they are very simple in their design, but do break up the levels instead of just running around and parkouring the whole time. Now, the game itself doesn't look the best, and the animations can glitch out a lot of the time. Laguna? Overall, I did like this one, and I'm going to award it with 5 stars, and it's going to be hard to beat, but we'll see if any others manage to. Next up, we have New Ghoul in School. This is very similar to Ghoul Spirit, but bigger and better, and with some of the craziest EDM background music I've ever heard in a game. Oh my god. What was this heavy EDM? I've only just joined the school. You'd also assume this music stops at some point, but no, it plays the entire time. And I noticed the game has some weird settings as well. What? Why has French got a Canadian logo? At the beginning, we get this intro animation, which looks straight out of a Disney show, and then gets to customize our ghoul. And I will say, there is a decent amount of variation when it comes to the customization options. After creating a monster, you get dropped off at the front gate of the school, and are greeted by Frankie, who tells us to go meet with the headmistress, Miss Bloodgood. Here is where you can already see more of an upgrade to the school compared to the other games. However, the communication mechanic when talking to other characters is basically the same. You also get a brand new eye coffin, where you can catch up on the social media of other students in the school, and of course look at your map and quests. You meet with the headmistress, and she tells you that she's assigned you a buddy who is Spectra. I think she's one of the main characters of the series, but I haven't seen her before, so I'm not 100% sure. You go and meet her in the library, and she says the best way to meet new people is to join the student clubs, and first off suggests the fashion one, but no one tells Malvina what to do. But essentially this is the aim of the game, to become a member of every club in the school and make loads of friends. Spectra then introduces you to some of her friends, Draculaura and Laguna, but maybe she moves a bit too quickly.
I was telling her all about you and the fear leaders. I thought you ghouls should hook up.
Do you think you could keep
Whoa,
her
whoa,
company,
whoa, whoa,
right?
whoa. Claudine is also here, but she doesn't feel like speaking yet. Laguna then asks you to join the student council, but eventually you end up in one of their meetings and meet the head, Torelli, as well as the other members, Abby and Katrine. In this meeting, Laguna is promoted to vice president, but it seems like Torelli has some ulterior motives that she's very good at hiding.
It's a nomination that's well-deserved. And it'll keep anyone suspicious about how I became prez off my back. So let's take it to a vote.
Anyways, after that awkward encounter, you go and meet with Draculaura at the cheerleader squad, which is where you meet Cleo, who is the captain, and I accidentally pissed her off.
Once upon a time, there was a
What did you say?
The next club you meet is the plants group. I'm not 100% sure what they do, but they like plants. Then there's the robotics group, which are trying to rebuild this robot person. There's the comic book club, who just read comic books. After you've met all the clubs and gone to your classes, which by the way aren't interactive, you just watch your character go into the room and the clock starts moving forward. You can then go home for the day. And you actually have a room that you go home to, where you can try on different clothes that you've bought from the store. And when you do try them on, you actually create a mess on the floor, which you then have to clean up, which I thought was a decent bit of realism in a game full of monsters. That's really weird. I've known her for a day, and now I've got her picture up in my room. And once you're done, you can then sleep and then move on to the next day, where you meet up with all the clubs and complete the tasks for them again. And that is the main premise of the story for the game. It doesn't go too much deeper than that. In terms of gameplay, the tasks you complete for the clubs are mainly just running around, collecting and returning items to them. But the parkour aspects keep it fresh, as at times, the items take a bit of figuring out to locate them. Besides that, there are some unique little mini games, like a dance routine for the cheerleaders, where you have to time button presses, and a maze for connecting the electricity for the robot that the mechanics club are creating. Cleo also has some riddles for you to solve, like she's some goblin guarding a treasure. The map is just the schools, so it is very similar to the map in Ghoul Spirits, but there is a good amount of exploration with collectibles, secret entrances, and locker codes, which you can use to get into random lockers and get some free money. Now, the students of the school can all be interacted with and have some events that randomly play, but only a few of them actually get voice lines, and a lot of the interaction is just them giving you a fat side eye when walking past them in the corridor. One thing I will like to point out in this game that I briefly mentioned is the music. It changes depending on what quest you're doing, and they are all remixes of the crazy EDM song that you hear when you're running around. Overall, I'd say this is an okay game. I think considering it came out in 2015, and if I compared it to other games that came out in that year, it could have looked a lot better and been more detailed. But I'm going to give it 4 stars. Now we're moving on to the Flash games with Creeptastic Catacomb Adventures. You can definitely tell this one was pretty odd by the menu. And in this one, you have 4 different adventures to go through, which are all 2D platformer style games, in which you play as different characters to collect certain items at the end of levels. The first one is Scary Sweet Memories, where you play as Claude collecting presents for Draculaura for her 1600th birthday. Then you have Fantastic Rescue, where you play as Laguna, who's retrieving her luggage after a giant tentacle comes and steals it all just as she's about to go on holiday. And this one is more of a maze style platforming level instead of just running around. Then there's Phantom Roller, where you play as Operetta on roller skates collecting badges for the school, I think. This one's more about maintaining momentum and was the most fun I found. And then there's Trick or Trance with Frankie, where the humans, aka the normies, are hunting down the monsters and you have to escape. This is very similar to the first level, as it's just a basic platformer, but it does have a gravity mechanic where you open doors to go upside down, but there's not much more to it apart from that. In each mission, you can attack by throwing things at enemies, like this weird thing, and you also have a special attack for each character, but for most of them, this is just the star power for Mario. I'd say in terms of Flash games, this is one of the best on the list, and I'd give it 3 stars. Next is Froggy Dash, where Laguna looks like she's straight out of Shark Tale, and Frankie looks like she's taken some mystery substance. Essentially in this one, Laguna has saved some frogs that were going to be used in one of the classes as experiments. However, the only way to get them to safety is to get them across this flooded restroom that for some reason has piranhas in it. This is basically Crossy Road with frogs, and you have to get all 5 onto a toilet for them to be flushed away and set free. There's not really much else to say about this one, and I completed it within like 5 minutes, so it's getting 2 stars. Next we have Dawn of the Dance. First of all, I'm not sure why these characters on the left are such a low quality compared to these other ones. And also, this one didn't really want to work. You're meant to pick a character and string together some dance moves. However, when I went to create a sequence, it wouldn't record, so I was just doing random individual moves. I'm giving this one 1 star. The next Monster High game is Bewitched by the Beat. Now this one isn't anything special, controversial, but I did think it was really cool. You select a song and kind of act as a DJ, creating your own mix. And what I liked about it was that it mixes each instrument of the song into its own individual track, and you can add your own effects to them and single them out, whilst also adding some DJ sound effects. I know it's just a Flash game and might not sound like the most interesting thing in the world, but anything with the Monster High theme song instantly gets my approval. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Next we have Scary Sun with Draculaura. Draculaura is on the beach with her SPF 500 sunscreen, which apparently is enough to keep her from literally burning and dying. Why she hasn't got a Hawaiian Tropic sponsorship yet, I will never know. But suddenly a wave comes and washes it away, so she needs to dig underground to get away from the sun. And in the process, she kills these crabs that are just minding their own business, but I'll let her off as she's one of my favourite characters. This is another very simple game where you have to collect all of these coins and get rid of all the enemies on screen to get to the next level. There's not really much else to say about this one. I thought it was okay for a game idea, but not something you've never seen before. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. Next up we have Scaris Style with Katrin. This is a dress-up style game which joins a large list of others that were also dress-up ones, but Monster High are dolls, so it makes sense. In this one you dress up Katrin, French for Katrine, in some French style in front of the Eiffel Tower. Now I'm not really a fashion expert, so you guys can let me know what you think of my design in the comments. I'm sure you have nice things to say. But you can customize pretty much everything from her hair to makeup and clothes, and even give her really French things like this picture of the Eiffel Tower. The game also has this interesting button that just says the text. I'm assuming it's meant to take you to the website it was originally from, but it no longer exists. This one is okay, but not really my style of game, so I'm going to give it 1.5 stars. Next up we have Ghoul Juice. In this one, Ghoulia wants to make some juice and has her own instructions to do so. So we have to, you guessed it, fire some pins down a pinball style course. Yeah, I'm not sure what went on with this one. When I saw it, I thought it'd be about mixing stuff together inside a potion or something, but no, she decides to make a machine that she had to collect points in to be able to get her juice. In terms of gameplay, it is just bouncing around a pinball off these Monster High skulls, which are quite hard to discern from other objects that give you points. You then get a high score at the end and need to try and get the highest score possible. To be fair, this was fun for like 5 minutes, but there's only so many times you can play a pinball machine. I'm going to give this one 2 stars. Then we have Creepateria Food Fight. In this one, you're fighting against other students in the Creepateria, launching food at them whilst blocking incoming attacks with a food tray and avoiding hitting teachers. You can also hit the chef, who will then give you his sausages to rapid fire hit the other students like a minigun. This one was pretty fun and gets quite intense when more and more students start arriving, whilst also having to make sure you're not hitting the teachers. I'm going to give this one 3 stars as I think it's a good mini game to play and actually gives a bit of challenge. Now the rest of the browser games I tried to find but couldn't, or they just no longer work anymore. And a few of the websites that I found were definitely reputable, such as Games-Kids and GameKidGame. Hopefully I don't have any viruses from making this video. But to mention the names of some that I did find, and to give some honourable mentions, there was Cascable Queen with Cleo, Pom Pom Panic with the Fear Leading Team, Monster Freak Out, Monster High Character Creator, some random puzzle games, and Fantastic Fashion Show. But with that is the whole list of games, totaling to 12 that I've rated in this video. But of course there are many more out there that I wish I could have played. But now it's time to see the best and the worst. The bottom spot goes to Dawn of the Dance. Yeah, these types of games just aren't for me, to be honest. But it is also very simple by design and doesn't have that much to offer, and it was also broken. But the number 1 spot goes to 13 Wishes. This is definitely the best made game on the list. I may be a bit biased as it was based off the only movie that I'd watched, but I think it was definitely the best. If you have any more games that you'd like to see me try out, let me know in the comments below. And if you think the ratings should have been different, you can argue with each other down there as well.